Mapping the history of the Indian subcontinent typically begins in the north. To understand the southern landmass, we first identify the Deccan region, the triangular territory framed by the Vindhya Hills and the Narmada River to the north, and bound by the eastern and western Ghats. Moving further down the map, crossing the Krishna River, we hit a specific geographical boundary. Everything located entirely below this river is classified as the far south. The earliest written evidence of empires operating in this deep southern territory comes from the north. Ashoka's 2nd and 13th major rock edicts identify 4 distinct southern kingdoms: the Cholas, the Pandyas, the Keralaputras, or Cheras, and the Satyaputras. We see this epigraphic evidence repeat in the Hati Gumpha inscription from the Kalinga king in modern-day Odisha, which explicitly names these same Tamil kingdoms. These stone inscriptions, along with trade records kept by Greek authors, provide borders and names, but offer no internal detail about the daily lives, economies, or political structures of the societies themselves. To reconstruct the reality of the Deep South, historians must look past stone edicts and rely on organic material, a massive corpus of ancient texts known as the Sangam literature. The Sangam functioned as a series of highly organized, state-sponsored assemblies where the greatest Tamil poets and scholars of the era were invited to compile and present their work. Historically, 3 distinct major assemblies were convened over several centuries. These assemblies carried immense geopolitical weight, conducted under the direct royal patronage and financing of the Pandya kings. The city of Madurai served as the intellectual epicenter, hosting both the first and the third assemblies, while the second was held in Kapaturapuram. This literary effort spans a massive chronological scale, with texts produced over a 600-year window, roughly between 300 BC and 300 AD. This corpus represents a deliberate, centuries-long institutional cataloging of an entire civilization. A significant portion of that record is lost. Absolutely no literary works from the first Sangam survive today. From the second Sangam, only a single masterpiece remains, the Tolkappiyam, authored by Tolkappiyam. As the sole surviving text from the first 2 assemblies, the Tolkappiyam is the earliest available piece of Tamil literature in existence. While it is presented as a rigorous textbook on Tamil grammar, its scope is much broader. The text encodes the socio-economic conditions and political realities of the Sangam period directly into its grammatical rules, serving as a foundational historical record. Establishing these structural rules is the required first step before decoding the massive output generated by the third and final assembly. Under the patronage of Pandya king Muda Thiramaran, the third assembly's output split into 2 primary branches. The first, Malkanaku, contains secular narratives. These split into Aham for love and Puram for war. It features 2 major anthologies, Etutage's 8 texts and Patupatu's 10 idols. These texts provide specific historical data. The Padre Purutatu offers details on the Chera kings, while the Madurai Kanji serves as a primary source for analyzing the Pandyas. The second main branch of the dataset is the Kilkanaku, which consists of didactic texts. These 18 minor works focus on ethics, morality, and right conduct rather than narrative description. The apex of these 18 texts is the Tirukural. Authored by Thiruvalluvar, it remains one of the most significant works in the collection. In this matrix, the Melkanaku documents the actions of the civilization, war and love, while the Kilkanaku records the moral principles that guided their behavior. The final layer of Sangam literature consists of the epics, specifically Silappathigaram and Manimekalai. These are not merely tragic stories, they function as geopolitical records. The Silappathigaram, written by Ilango Adigal, begins in the wealthy Chola port city of Puhar, following the merchant Kovalan, his wife Kannagi, and the dancer Madhavi. Economic ruin forces Kovalan and Kannagi to flee Chola territory, migrating into the heart of the neighboring Pandya kingdom. In Madurai, confusion over a stolen anklet leads to a failure of justice. King Nedunjelian hastily executes Kovalan without a trial. This results in the epic's climax. Kannagi's curse burns the city of Madurai, causing the sudden death of the Pandya king. Kannagi then retreats from the Pandya territory and ascends into the mountains of the Chera kingdom, where she spends her final days. This single tragedy tracks the movement between 3 kingdoms, documenting the connection between regional trade routes, justice systems, and topographies across the south. The narrative had immediate historical fallout. In the 2nd century, Chera king Sengutavan was so moved by Kannagi's story that he took state action. He institutionalized the Pathini cult, initiating a movement to worship Kannagi as the ideal loyal wife and constructing temples in her honor. Historical records show the inauguration ceremonies for this cult were attended by international leaders, specifically King Gajabahu II of Sri Lanka. This attendance indicates a high level of diplomatic and cultural interconnectivity between South India and its neighbors. The narrative timeline extends into the sequel epic, Mani Makalai, which follows the daughter of Kovalan and Madhavi, providing a multi-generational record of the region. While Ashokan rock edicts confirm that these southern empires existed, it is the Sangam literature that allows us to analyze their internal mechanics, trade, and social structures.